Our next and last speaker for eXL Day 2 is Miss Lisa Brazelton, and she is here to share her insights about how to learn the art of cognitive quiet. It's a very different and interesting topic, and we hope that our audience will learn a lot during her session. Lisa is a business executive, author, and internationally recognized educator, bridging human potential and evolution of humanity. As a thriving global leader, she paves the way of doing business with revolutionary insights, creativity, and collaboration. Her strategic and innovative strengths help transform cultures by teaching internal awareness systems through teaching and coaching. Lisa has conceived several companies, including Wisdom from the Edge in 2020, an educational non-profit dedicated to transforming organizational climate and culture through the concept of self-awareness programs in the latest research in neuroscience, trauma-informed practices, mindfulness, soft skills, and self-care tools. She is a published author, and she has written over 60 self-development courses and has created multiple programs in personal and professional development. Lisa is dedicated to coaching leaders. And helping them discover their deeper purpose using her unique blend of wisdom, metaphysics, and foresight, and allowing for new, different, conscientious business practices to emerge for a new, harmonious world. As a reminder to all our attendees, this conference is being recorded. We will have a Q&A at the end of this presentation. Please use the Q&A tool if you have a question for the speaker. The stage is all yours, Lisa. You can now share your content and unmute yourself. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Sana. Wow. Well, I'm so grateful to have gotten in early so I can listen to the last two presenters, and I too was very inspired by both of them, and in particular, Dr. Gonzalez. She had a lot of really wonderful things to say. And I think Judy touched on something that I think is very interesting, and that is, how do you bring empathy into the business world? So my talk is very different. Even though I have a lot of business background, my passion is in how do we find the greatest version of ourselves? How do we become the greatest version of ourselves? And I'm going to take you on a journey today that is going to be a little different, and just bear with me because we're going to go through a little labyrinth, because we have to find out a few things before we can be the best version. And the art of cognitive quiet really does help us tap into our creative genius. So, you know, one of the things that when I was asked to be a speaker, I thought, well, let's see, technology, software, technology, and the art of cognitive quiet, spiritual practices. And then I thought, well, man, some of the well-known greatest minds in technology were or are deeply influenced by spiritual practice. And I would like to just for a second talk about Steve Jobs. I am very familiar with Paramahansa Yogananda's work, who was the Eastern yogi who came to the Western world in the early 1900s, and he transcended in 1952. But he is well known for the biography of a yogi book, and his teachings have been spread throughout the world in a Self-Realization Fellowship, which is an organization that teaches the works of Paramahansa Yogananda, as well as the works of the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And Steve Jobs was, especially in his later years, he was deeply influenced by Yogananda and by his own spiritual practice, which in turn created so many of the milestones that we are appreciating today, I think, in the world of technology. So I'd like to start with defining, because I love the use of etymology and trying to understand a little bit better, what are words? So the meaning of words, and sometimes I like to make them up because I think that they're more coherent, they're simpler to understand. So I've used the word cognitive quiet over the last several years with clients, and I've done a lot of writing around it. And my definition is it's the ability to quiet the mind upon command, bringing mind chatter into a neutral gear, free from drama and overwhelm, emotional overwhelm, and exercising your mental muscles into momentary peace. We're going to talk a little bit about mind chatter, but I want to just pause here for a second and say that we all have the mental muscle and we use it in certain ways. But when it comes to our own ability to become self-aware of who we are, of what goes on in our mind, oftentimes that mental muscle is atrophied. And so a lot of the work that I do is to start to engage in that muscle so that people can become truly more aware and tap into their creative genius and become more at peace. So the learning of the art of cognitive quiet is a skill that shifts the mind from being reactive to being proactive, affirming stress resilience, emotional growth, and psychological maturity. And some of you may say, well, that's pretty simple, right? Excuse me.
Recording in progress.
I'm going to record. So it's simple to have cognitive quiet, but it's not easy. And I'll tell you why. The challenge that we have in quieting our minds is pretty difficult unless we know how to quiet the mind. Most people go through life in what is called the monkey mind, the chatterbox. It's the thing that goes always, always, always. It's always going, right? And according to Buddhist practices, the Buddhist principle, the monkey mind is a term that refers to being unsettled or confused or restless and not able to discern between the doing and your being, who you are. Buddha actually described the human mind as being filled with drunken monkeys, which is where they're jumping around and screeching and chattering and carrying on endlessly. But there's a newsflash here. We all have monkey minds. We all have the challenge of being so busy, of being so overwhelmed, of not being aware of our thoughts that we don't really know what's happening in our day. We kind of let life be the gateway to how we live it versus become more empowered by choosing to live a certain life. I'm going to tell you just a quick little story. As much as I'm in this work and as much as I teach other people and I hold workshops and programs and I work with a lot of CEOs, I too am a student of wisdom, not a master by any means. And so yesterday, in all my preparation, in the lot of different things that I'm working on as well, I thought that my speech was yesterday and not today. You can imagine, right? And so I thought, it happens to all of us when we don't always quiet the mind and get present. So I thought I would share that with you. Thank goodness I didn't have anything going on today. So we're going to go a little deeper into science. I like to talk about how the mind works from a scientific perspective. How do we understand the mind? And I love the iceberg because science has revealed that by the time that we are 40 years old, we have on average about 65 to 70,000 thoughts a day. However, out of those thoughts, 95% are sitting in our subconscious mind. We're not aware. It's like the iceberg. We're not even aware of the thoughts that are going on. About 5%, on average, are sitting in our conscious mind, what we are aware of. Now, take that in for a minute. Our subconscious mind is like a computer program that does updates on a regular basis that we're not even aware of. And if our minds that we're conscious of are like daggers, right? Constantly pumping out thought after thought after thought. I've got to do this, I got to do that. Think about how your day is on a regular basis. Do you write things down? Are things coming at you all the time? Right? There's only so much that we can have in our minds, but we're only aware of about 5%. So the problem is, a little bit, is that we're not aware of most of the thoughts that we have on a regular basis. So what causes this monkey mind to run rampant, to run amok? Well, I would say the number one thing is stress. But we have worry, and we have anxiety, and we have fear, and we have jealousy, and we have self-doubt. You name it, right? The list goes on. We think about all the things that our monkey mind does. And stress is what holds so much of our thoughts on a regular basis that we are aware of and that we're not aware of. So some of the underlying reasons of stress is our health, our poor self-image, cultural conditioning, external demands, societal pressures, burnout, creating worst case scenarios. Anybody do that? Always creating worst case scenarios. Well, these are some of the reasons that we have stress to begin with. Now listen to this. There are 5 fundamental effects of stress in our lives: physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And I really want to target the mental, but we're going to go through this. So you may be like, well, what does this have to do with cognitive quiet? Well, we have to understand how the mind's working and the way that the mind is working in order for us to have that awareness so that we can make a different choice. So physiologically, our heart beats faster when we're stressed out. We consume more oxygen. Our adrenal glands pump out more adrenaline and cortisol, which is our fight, flight, or freeze hormone that kicks in. Our pancreas releases glucagon and less insulin, so it's raising our blood pressure, our blood sugar. Our immune system is suppressed. You get the idea. Mentally, when we're stressed, we actually make very poor decisions. Many studies are around what happens to people when, especially long-term low-grade stress is a part of everyday life. We have our racing thoughts, our worry, our concern. We decrease in our productivity. We feel lethargic. We're overwhelmed. We're burnt out. Emotionally, we can be depressed. We can be very reactive, argumentative, impatient, short-sighted, judgmental. Spiritually, we could be very close-minded. We could feel very alone. We can feel like a victim. We can have a scarcity mindset. Physically, headaches, migraines, sleep deprivation, stomach issue, brain fog, sweaty palms, increased hot flashes. You get the picture. Stress is and does affect everybody on different levels. 80% of our thoughts are negative. 80%. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive which means that the more negative an experience, the more we return to it. The more negative an experience, the more we return to that. And we do the loop, right? The loop over and over again. I shouldn't have said that. I can't believe that happened. You know, that email I received was very upsetting. I got into an argument with my spouse, you name it. It just keeps going. That's the monkey mind, right? In order for us to understand how to separate ourselves from our monkey minds, we actually have to do what Einstein famously said, that no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So we have to shift. We actually have to have a different understanding in order to no longer be held hostage by our thoughts. So I created this diagram. You know, this is a very interesting diagram because it's really our thoughts and our feelings that create our habits. Our habits create our beliefs. Our beliefs create our perceptions, and our perceptions create our personal reality or our personality. So in turn, our thoughts and our feelings are a loop, right? When we're not feeling good, we start to think negative thoughts. When we start to think negative thoughts, we start to not feel good. And it's a loop that continues. And that trickles down into the person that we've become. It actually is an indicator, if we do not change our thoughts, of who we have been and who we are to become. We don't change, right? However, your personality is your state of being. It's who you are being. Who are you? What you think and how you feel comes from you, and only you, by the way. This is the sovereignty that we don't necessarily want to imbue. That we don't necessarily want to think that, oh, it's my thoughts and my feelings that are from me. Nobody else can react. We have to own that, which can be a very difficult pill to swallow for a lot of people, right? So I want to go back to this. If our thoughts and feelings create our habits, and our habits create our beliefs, and our beliefs create our perception, and our perception creates our personality, then guess what? That means that it influences what we choose. It influences the relationships that we have. It influences the career that we choose or not. It influences the creations that we have. Think about what our thoughts and feelings do. It creates the life that we're living. And given that there are 80% of our thoughts are sitting in are negative, and 95% of those are sitting in our subconscious, then we have to unprogram ourselves in order to reprogram into a personal reality that we would like to live within. We form habits into our subconscious mind by repeating a thought or an act over and over and over and over again until it establishes a pattern, and then it becomes automatic. Some of you, I'm sure, drive to work if you go into an office. Not everybody is working from an office these days. How many times do you go into an office and you're driving and you're doing multiple things at the same time? You're not even aware that you're driving. As a matter of fact, if you think about how did you get to the office or to the store or wherever, you can't really think about that drive. Oftentimes it's become so automatic because we're doing other things. Maybe we're thinking of other things, that monkey mind. So I want to show you this really fascinating video. And we're going to look at what a habit looks like. This is an animation, but this is what our brains, how our brains fire, the wiring of our brains fire. These are neurons. Neurons are firing. These are thoughts that are happening. Look at all these thoughts. And wait for it, right there. You see that pattern? That's a habit right there. So when the hard wiring of our brain in the synapse that fire, what we just saw, a habit changes when the wiring no longer fires, right? When two synapses no longer fire together. They no longer fire together, they're no longer wired together. And that's how we change our habits. That's how we start to change. But you have to uncover the layers. Again, we're talking about how to get into cognitive quiet. But if we're not aware of so many thoughts that go through our head on a regular basis, that's where we start. And some of the questions that I bring to the surface with clients that I work with is, and I want you to ask these questions to yourself. Who am I underneath the noise? That monkey mind. Who is that? Who am I listening to? What am I listening to? And what are my influences? Are your influences your boss, media, your parents, your spouse, your kids? Right? And who have we become? Right? We are influenced, by the time we're an adult, we are influenced by our parents and teachers and preachers and peers and media, religion. We are influenced by so many things. And my question is who are we underneath the noise, right? So we are something different than what we think we are. And I want to discern the importance of discerning the ego from our intuition, because these questions about who's speaking, that's a really important question to ask. Why does it matter? And my question back is, well, who's running the show, right? If you're not even aware of those even 5% of the 65,000 thoughts that are running through your brain on a regular basis, on a daily basis, then who is it? Remember, your personality originates from your thoughts and feelings. So we have to understand who we are. And right now, we're just peeling back the onion, right? So the ego mind refers to I, me. It separates all humanity from one another. It gives a person their identity. It's made of thoughts and feelings and beliefs and memories and visual images and has a life of its own. This is the ego. The ego mind, by the way, okay? This is not Freudian, this is the ego mind. The ego stores our consciousness, which is that 5% of our daily thoughts. It focuses on attachments. It works to satisfy pleasure by avoidance of negative consequences. It holds the world of illusion and delusion and can hide from reality when self-awareness isn't present. That's key right there. It's the part of the mind that's always looking outward. not inward. How do I live my life? I have to look outward. The ego mind is always looking out. It does not look in. But the intuition is an amazing guidance system. It is that gut feeling. We can also feel it in our hearts. How many times have you been in a situation where you know something? You have that just knowing. Maybe it's a physical sensation. Maybe it's just this knowing. I think we've all had it once or twice, but or multiple times, but often we don't listen to it. We don't listen. We're not taught how to listen to our intuition. But the intuition provides these beautiful whispers that keep us on the path of life, the life that we want. In the quiet moments, we hear what we typically don't hear, cognitive quiet. It's a muscle that we're not taught how to use, like I said. It moves past the barriers of knowledge and into a deeper well of wisdom. It's a very powerful tool that all of us have at our fingertips. Our intuition is the gateway of finding ourselves and allow for our being to shine forth versus our doing nature. Our intuition is one of the greatest gifts that very few of us actually use. There have been many times in my life, in my past, in business years ago, where I didn't trust my intuition. And that actually didn't serve me well in some business decisions that ultimately cost a lot in my life, not just financially. And I'm sure that you have times in your life where you second guessed yourself, right? So you may be saying, well, if then I tap into my intuition, will I find cognitive quiet? Well, I'm saying a great big yes. But we're not there yet, okay? Because tapping into our intuition requires practice, okay? So let's review. Quieting the mind taps into your intuition. When you lower the volume of your mind chatter, it brings a sense of calm, less reactivity, and therefore more peace. And it allows for creative genius to bubble to the surface. We can live life from the inside out versus the outside in. Now, what is creative genius? Creative genius is something that I think that we're all born with. It is our divine purpose. It's what we're meant to do. It's the thing that bubbles up for us, like I said. It is the thing that keeps you awake at night that you want to do so much. Maybe you have a deep passion for helping humanity. Maybe you are a writer. Maybe you are an artist. There are things that we all have within us, but many of us don't tap into our creative genius. And the magic here is that cognitive quiet not only lowers our stress, changes our thoughts that we have from being so negative into much more positive, but then it also provides this ability to tap into our creative genius. So I'm pausing for a second because this is a lot of information and there may be questions, and I will answer all the questions at the end. I will definitely have enough time for that. But I wanted to take just a quick pause to see if there were any questions that were, if they're piling up. It's a lot of information. This is a different type of thinking. This is having empathy for yourself. You know, there's a lot of information that comes to us at a rapid speed every day, but we often forget about ourselves in the mix. And so I think learning some of the practices that I will show you, and we'll do it together at the end, will start to build a new you. Not that there's anything wrong with who you are in this moment, but are you satisfied with your life? You know, I know some people that don't know how to quiet their mind, and they are up all the time. They have so many things going on, but I don't know if they're happy. So this is really, these practices that we're going to walk through in just a few minutes are for you to use for yourself and to have empathy for yourself and to give yourself the self-care that you need, that you deserve. So I want to put things into perspective. Now, we talked about, again, this review of cognitive quiet. What keeps us from being quiet in our minds is our monkey mind. What is the greatest aversion to quieting our mind and getting that monkey mind under control is stress. And stress affects us in many, many different ways. And most of our thoughts that we have are negative, and we repeat those over and over again. And our thoughts and our feelings create our habits, and our habits create our beliefs, and our beliefs create our perspective, and our perspective creates our personal reality, the way we see the world, our lenses that we see out in the world. It's our perception, right? And I love these pictures because they're almost magical for me, but we all have a different perspective in which we view life. And your unique lens from your thoughts and your feelings and your actions and your behaviors, by the way, create and influence your relationships, the choices that you make. So let's move on for just one moment. Managing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors through the practice of shifting thoughts and redirecting the mind, we actually influence the reaction in the body and start to feel different. Now, I didn't highlight this, but when we influence the reaction in the body, we start to feel different. We actually start to feel different physiologically, as well as mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So let's dive into this for a minute. What influences our thoughts and feelings? And this is a big one for me. This is the latest, greatest in neuroplasticity and neuroscience. You're going to be surprised by the answer, because when I found this out, I was amazed. I actually was stopped in my tracks when I heard this several years ago. Our body influences. It reacts to the way that we think, we feel, and we act. Our body does. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. We're going to go a little bit into science, just a teeny bit. Stay with me, okay? We have an estimated 37 trillion cells in our body. Each of those 37 trillion cells has over 10,000 receptors. Okay, so think of a cell, and there are 10,000 receptors around that cell, where peptides dock onto these receptors, and our peptides produce our emotion. So imagine one cell, we have 10,000 receptors all around, and we have peptides that are docking to these 10,000 receptors. This is a phenomenon all in of itself, right? Remember, peptides produce our emotions, our joy, our fear, our anger, our upset, love. So this phenomenon creates a physiological phenomenon that can translate to larger changes in our behavior, physical activity, and even mood. So what this is saying is, get ready for it, because this is like the big drumming moment, okay? New cells are not cloned from old cells like they thought. They don't split. The old cells just don't split. New cells get produced and split that contain more receptors of whatever peptide it receives that causes it to split. Cells produce whatever emotion it has more of. New cells are created according to what you think and feel. Think about that. How we think and how we feel actually changes our physiology to produce more of the same. So if we go back and think about 80% of those 95% thoughts of the 65,000 thoughts a day, I know that's a lot. But if we have 80% that is sitting in negative thoughts, it's no wonder that we're on repeat and we're repetitive. That 95% of repetition of those negative thoughts day after day, minute after minute, sometimes year after year. Because the receptors, the peptides that carry our emotion are going to, the more we have of something, the more it's going to split and create more cells in that way. I don't know about you, but I find that to be absolutely fascinating. So what does that mean, right? That's not meant to be doom or gloom, okay? But what it means is that we have a choice. Dr. Candace Pert said, as our feelings change, this mixture of peptides travels throughout our body and our brain, and they're literally changing the chemistry of every cell in our body. These little peptides that hold all of our feelings, our emotions, how we feel. So this comes to the final question, one of the final questions. Does this mean I'm responsible for my thoughts and feelings? Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, your body will produce more cells depending on how you think and feel. You have the freedom to choose a thought, a positive thought, or a negative thought. You can choose a positive feeling or a negative feeling. It may seem overwhelming, but this is the key to cognitive quiet. We cannot understand how to get into cognitive quiet if we don't realize the implications of what our minds do when we're not aware, when we're not present. And our body, in turn, starts to pump out more of the things that we're feeling, more of those emotions, those peptides. So my question to you is, how do you want to live your life? It's totally up to you. You have the freedom to choose. And this is a tagline that I use all the time. We are the source of our experiences. We choose our experiences based on how we think and feel. So how to quiet the mind chatter, tap into intuition, and have freedom to create. How do we do it? How do we do it? I've been talking about all this science stuff. How do we do it now? Well, I'm going to go back to one thing. The universal laws is something that I live by. And one of the most important ones in my life is the universal law of correspondence. As above, so below. We are all connected to all living things. And one of the reasons that I put these few slides in here is because when we change, everyone else around us changes. We think that the world, it needs to change, right, out there. But the art of cognitive quiet is a stepping stone into self-mastery. And self-mastery says that we are all connected, and I have to take responsibility for my thoughts and feelings in order to have a better world. As above, so below. This universal law requires the test to reflect our truth to the illusion of who we think we are at the surface, and be willing to focus into the space in between to uncover our ultimate truth. Those questions: who am I? Who's the voice? What's that noise? How am I being influenced? The law of correspondence is about deducing the hidden by looking at what exists above and below, right? If we look at it from a solution to a problem and seeing the patterns and the shadows of what is in between. We cannot see when we have no cognitive quiet. We're flailing in life. And in order for us to really see above, right, the aerial view of what life looks like, right, below the surface, above the surface, and we're somewhere in between. And that's where we're able to find these very, very incredible solutions to some of the most perplexing problems that we have. So I wanted to have a little fun exercise here because of all the seriousness, and look at three structures. Mycelium, which is the root-like structure of fungus that consists of mass of branchings underground. It's the biggest living organism on Earth. It affects about 90% of plant life on this planet, including trees. It's phenomenal what mycelium do. Our neural networks is the network that consists of many interconnected neurons in the brain. It's a pathway that receives data at the input and provides a response, output, which in turn becomes our learning. That's how we learn. The total number of neurons in our brain in a human is around 100 billion. 100 billion neurons in our brain. The cosmic web. The cosmic web is composed of interconnecting filaments of cluster galaxies and gases stretching across the universe, separated by giant voids. In 2020, Hubble revealed an estimated 100 billion galaxies are in the observable universe, but will most likely double as our technology changes. So we're going to do a little fun exercise here. Mycelium, neural networks, or our cosmic web. What do you think is what? They all look very similar, don't they? As above, so below. I'm going to give you just a minute or two to look at each one of these to see which is which. Some of you may have guessed correctly. Mycelium is the first left. The cosmic web is up here. And our neural networks, we have those 100 billion neurons, is here. It is absolutely fancy. I mean, I find it to be the most fascinating thing. As above, so below. We are looking at our human brain, what is 90% of under the earth, and our cosmic web. How do we quiet the mind? Now we're getting to it. Now we're getting to the juicy stuff. We quiet the mind in quiet moments, meditation, breath work, a very conscious pause, contemplation, and concentration. I want to talk about pause for a second. Pause is very powerful in getting into cognitive quiet. Quieting the mind overrides fear, even if it's simply for 3 minutes. I set my alarm on my phone every single day, and I have an app that chimes. And at the top of every hour, I pause for 3 minutes and I breathe. When we do this, we release fear. Our bodies go back to harmonic resonance, which physiologically affects the nervous system and slows down chemicals like cortisol, which is our fight, flight, or freeze hormone that kicks in all the time when we're stressed. But when we are in harmony, our minds and our bodies function at optimum level. And so I really invite you to use the pause button. When you receive an email, when something doesn't sound right to you in an email or a meeting, instead of reacting, cognitive quiet says pause, right? Now, here's the fun stuff. We're going to do 2 exercises together. I hope you do them with me. The first is called the Spironess technique, which is actually changing the respiratory breath, actually resetting your respiratory system. This was discovered by a French doctor about 20 years ago, and she is using this technique specifically in different industries such as personal training. I have taken many classes in Spironess breathing, and we're going to do just a quick 30-second Spironess, 1-minute Spironess technique. And the other one is left nostril breathing. No, before I get started, I think that I may have missed one slide, and that slide is this. Steve Jobs actually said, and this was a quote from someone, I think it was the CEO of Salesforce, who said, I think maybe was in the eulogy or something, that Steve Jobs used his intuition when he realized that he could tap into his intuition and live from the inside out. That is where most of his genius work actually came from. Can't seem to find that slide, but that's okay. So we're going to do this together. I invite you to sit straight up in your chair. If your feet are not flat on the floor, please do that. Rest your palms facing on your lap, facing down. And I'm going to walk you through this. I'll talk it first and then we'll do it together. So we're going to breathe out all the air in the lungs, everything, stomach, everything, immediately. And you're going to hold that for 5 seconds. And then you're going to inhale deeply from your stomach, moving that all the way up to your chest, all the way up, and you're going to hold that for 5 seconds. And you're going to release it, and you're going to repeat this. We're going to repeat this 3 times, okay? Wherever you are in your breathing right now, I want for you to breathe out all the air right now. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe out. Squeeze those stomach muscles. Breathe out every single thing that you have. Breathe it out and hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Now take a deep inhale in. Your stomach all the way up through your chest, up to your neck. Maybe you can bring that breath all the way to the top of your head and hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1. Release that breath. Release that breath all the way down through your chest, your neck, your chest, your stomach. Take that breath all the way out. Squeeze those stomach muscles so you don't have any air. 3, 2, 1. Now take that deep breath in again. Inhale through your stomach, through your chest, all the way up through your neck. Maybe you can hit the top of your head and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release all the way down, all the way out. Get that air all the way out again. Get that air all the way out and hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last time, take a deep breath in, all the way up, getting the biggest breath that you can take, bringing that breath all the way up to the top of your head and hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now relax and breathe normally. Take your time. You just reset your respiratory system. Now, Spironess breathing techniques, this is just a teeny little sand pebble on the beach. It is an extraordinary system that brings the ability to get into cognitive quiet very fast. First, you are doing something completely different, so you're stopping in the middle of your thoughts and you're letting your mind do something. The mind needs something to do, so count. When the mind is occupied, that's where you're able to dive deeper into that cognitive quiet. Some of you may feel a little lightheaded. Some of you may feel a little energized. Maybe you're a little tired. See if we can do the next one. It's the last one. Left nose breathing technique. Take your right finger, your right thumb, and hold it to your right nostril. I want for you to inhale through your left nostril while counting slowly to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold for 7. Now, you can use your ring finger or your first finger and cover your left nostril and release your thumb on your right nostril and exhale slowly to 10. Now, holding that breath all the way out. Taking that next breath in with the same nostril, your right nostril. Breathing in, counting to 10. And hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Move your nostril, your thumb to your right nostril and release. We may be running out of time, so you're going to do another inhale through your left nostril, hold it, and you're going to turn it into and release your left thumb or your right thumb on your right side, and you're going to exhale. And so it's just, and you're going to get these slides, it's just changing the nostril. It's called left nostril breathing, and it resets your cortisol, your fight, flight, or freeze. 3 minutes, 1 minute. If you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, burnt out, that actually does an immediate reset for you. So Practice cognitive quiet, active listening, be present. Learn how to be comfortable in silence. Emphasize self-care, listen to the whispers, practice these breath techniques. Practice pausing. Become aware of those thoughts that are not beneficial for you. I am available for any questions. I know that we're running a little bit out of time. You can find all of the work that I do. I have many programs and nonprofit and other companies. Everything you can find is on becomingselfmastered.com. My email address is below. You can see books. I'm an author. You can see a self-mastery program, transformational coaching. I work with a lot of leaders around the world. I do leadership training and podcasts. Check me out. I'd love to answer any questions anybody has.